I remember back in the summer after grade 12. That was pretty much when my friend and I started taking the gym more seriously. The gym we went to had this interesting setup where you had to walk through the cardio section to get to the free weight section, probably to convince you to just do cardio and not crowd up the free weight section any more than it already was. I remember one day we were crossing through the cardio section and I noticed this really fit girl running who I hadn't seen at our gym before. "Oh look, it's my sister." "That's your sister?" "Yeah." "Hey Sam, when you're done with all this, you should come and get a real workout in with us." "No thanks. I smoke weed and then zone in and run for an hour." Now I'm thinking, does she know something I don't? Some secret fitness trick? Besides, lifting weights makes girls big and bulky. Okay, never mind, let's go. But despite her obvious lack of knowledge on the benefits of strength training in women, was she onto something with the smoking piff before running? Over the last 10 years, we've been seeing a real shift in attitude toward marijuana smoking. As of the recording of this video, there are 9 states which now allow for recreational marijuana use, and 29 which allow for its use for medicinal purposes. But I should still add, none of this is medical advice. Always consult with your physician, and you alone are responsible for checking your local laws and what you put in your body. Anyway, marijuana contains over 400 chemical compounds, with the most well-known being THC, short for tetrahydrocannabinol. Also worth mentioning is CBD, which, although it isn't psychoactive, brings various other effects and is the basis for many pharmacotherapies. These compounds can bind with CB1 and CB2 receptors located on cells throughout the body. Sentiment is definitely changing. This comes as doctors and scientists are starting to realize there is some real cancer-fighting potential here. According to one paper published, cannabinoid receptors often overexpress in tumor cells, and the stimulation of these receptors in the tumor can actually lead to the death of the tumor cell by upregulating the stress-regulated protein P8. Studies have also shown that it is able to reduce intraocular pressure, which has led to its usage as a treatment by some doctors for glaucoma. Okay, so there are some very legit medical uses for marijuana, that is for sure. But back to the gym. My friend's sister wasn't actually alone. In fact, prior to being added to the banned substance list, 10% of Olympic athletes had reported usage. The debate to determine whether it should be added to the banned substances list was a fierce one, but by looking at the arguments in favor of banning it, we can learn from the experts as to why they felt that lighting up might just give you an edge. Now, they began by arguing on the negatives, that the effects of marijuana could cause physical impairment, which could lead to the athlete hurting themselves or someone else. Studies have shown acute increases in dizziness and an increase in reaction time. It is also known that cannabis can alter the perception of risk, which could lead to poor decision-making. This makes sense considering CB1 receptor density in the cerebellum, involved in motor control and movement, and prefrontal cortex, involved in decision-making and executive function, is so high. The second and more interesting argument was that smoking cannabis is a performance enhancer. To justify this, they pointed to the prevalence of use among athletes. In France in 2002, 25% of the IOC positive tests were for cannabis. According to the World Anti-Doping Association, marijuana was the second most reported substance in the 2008-2009 year, beat only by anabolic steroids. A study was conducted in France on 1,152 university athletes about their use of cannabis. Based on the student survey responses, the relaxing properties of cannabis were frequently used to enhance sport performance. Surprisingly, the higher the student's level of competition, the more cannabis was employed to enhance performance. And while studies have shown that marijuana was unable to increase peak physical output during a grip test, and in maximal cycling it actually decreased performance from 16 to 15 minutes, it seems that any performance-enhancing elements must be mainly psychological. According to a PubMed paper, smoked cannabis can decrease anxiety, fear, depression, and tension, which they say could especially benefit athletes who may have had a traumatic experience in their career. Also, it is no secret that cannabis can be an appetite stimulant, which, if your fitness goals include gaining weight, could be seen as beneficial. Despite all this though, it's worth remembering that many studies have linked smoking it with increased diastolic blood pressure and heart rate, which definitely isn't desirable, especially if you're already at risk for heart disease. An interesting physical effect, the THC in marijuana has been demonstrated to yield a bronchodilation effect, which can open up the airways, helping you to get more oxygen into your lungs. This effect is conferred by both edibles and marijuana smoke because it depends on the THC. So there is definitely some interesting info on both sides. Now, personally, I wouldn't recommend it for the gym. My thoughts are, if it can impair your judgment enough to make driving high dangerous, messing with heavy weights in that state probably isn't a good idea either. But hey, based on the reports, some people feel it helps them in their athletic endeavors. And since this video is just entertainment anyways, you do you, my friend. You do you. And until next time, D-Man signing off.
Smoke weed every day.